Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Well, good morning and welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Stan Kirkland, and with me on my right is Ken Paramore. We're going to be co-hosting the show today. Winston is out of town. He'll be back, should be back tomorrow, but we will be with you today. The high today is 83 degrees. The low tonight, or this morning, was 63. Our water temperature in our bays is 82 degrees. The moon phase, I didn't look at it this morning, but I know the last couple of days it's been just over a quarter. So for those of you that look at that before you make your fishing trips. The tides were low. The high tide was low this morning at 3:03 a.m. High tide will be this afternoon. The high was at 3:03 this morning. The low will be this afternoon at 1:42. Tides have really been messed up over the last week. If you like to fish, the tides are just really out of phase. But anyway, we're going to take a break now, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the National Wild Turkey Federation banquet that we just had. Just a very successful banquet, and you get the credit for that. And we'll be back in just a minute. Well, welcome back to the show. I mentioned a minute ago that my co-host was Ken. He wasn't on camera, so.
But I was in the building.
You were here. That's correct.
Good morning.
Good to see you, Ken.
You too.
Ken and I, for those of you that don't know, we worked together for years with FWC. Probably a lot of people glad to see two old silverbacks get out of the way, and
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But we both had great careers with FWC, and I'm telling you, there's some very fine people in our organization. A lot of them, our hearts and prayers are with people here in the state of Florida that were impacted by Hurricane Matthew, and also a lot of our employees that we work with have responded.
Are down there.
And are down there, and so thoughts and prayers go out to those folks.
Or over there, I guess you could say, depending on
where they are.
The entire coastline.
I know. Tough times. Ken, you chaired our local organization, the Bay County Longbeards, and it's under your leadership for the last 2 years. We've had a committee that would work together, but kind of tell us where we are and how we did this year in our banquet.
Well, as you know, as being part of it yourself, and Stan is our man with the money and manages our chapter money. So I couldn't have done it without the committee that we have and the people that help. And more importantly, the people who come and support it every year so far after 2 years. As you know, mid to late August, we had our second annual banquet at First United Methodist downtown. And we exceeded our expectations, and we also exceeded the attendance that we had last year by quite a bit.
Yep, you're exactly right.
The food was prepared by the people at the church
Panama City First United Methodist, right?
And the food was over the top.
Oh, that's great. I agree with you.
It was some of the best barbecue I've had, and not to mention, I guess we fed over 200 probably.
Right.
We probably had between 2 and 220 in attendance. We had a lot of people show up at the door. We had some great door prizes, or raffle prizes. We had 13 sponsor tables or sponsor tickets sold. And we had a great auction. We had a silent and a live auction. And we went almost to 11 o'clock at night, I think, with all that went on. But it was very successful, and I don't think we've got our official figures back yet, but we were looking at around $40,000 gross. That's before we paid bills. So, and last year it was 30-ish. So we even increased our revenues by several $1,000s, at least on the gross side.
And let me add one thing. That money doesn't stay here. We don't spend that money in our community. That money goes and correct me if I'm wrong, but it goes not only for Florida chapter projects here in Florida to benefit wild turkeys and wild turkey management, but also there's like a 27-to-1 matching ratio. In other words, that money is matched, and so that money goes far beyond the little over $40,000 that we raised at this banquet. So it goes a long, long way, and there's very little of that money that goes for administration. You may know more about that, how many cents on the dollar that is, but
it's 90 plus cents on the dollar goes back to save the habitat, and NWTF works with partnerships with every Fish and Wildlife agency in the country that manages wild turkey populations.
I know they work also with Eglin Air Force Base and maintaining the right-of-way under power lines on a lot of state areas. I know Roger Shields, our coordinator for our turkey program here in the state. You know, you and I, last spring, we were involved in putting up gates. Our chapter was involved in putting up gates on one of our management areas where they had been where they had been torn down or things had happened. So you know, anyway, that's and when you look at where we've come over the last 75 to 100 years, where there were very few turkeys, they had basically been due to habitat loss and changes and you know, market hunting, which is not hunting like we have today. Wild turkey numbers were at an all-time low, not only in Florida but across the country.
And as you know, they're so vulnerable to weather and predation.
Weather's a big thing in the spring.
You know,
we
they
get a lot of rain.
They have a tough enough time on their own.
Yep, predators.
So
right.
It's you know, it's, if you love to turkey hunt, it's worth being involved.
And you don't even have to like the turkey hunt. If you enjoy wildlife, it's a great thing. I've already had one. I haven't even talked to you about this, but since the banquet, I've had one business in town that's come forward and told me they want to be a sponsor. So we're going to include them. I've already got them penciled in for next year, but it's a great project.
We're looking forward to our third annual.
Yeah.
And we hope to have it again, you know, sometime, you know, late or mid-August next year, because it's been so successful for that time of year.
And it truly is a labor of love, because it's something that we, you know, if you didn't, something you work on for 2 or 3 months, you got to enjoy it, and especially when you're retired. So anyway, we're going to take a break now, but when we come back, going to talk to Ken about some fishing he's doing, and a little bit about, you know, what fishing I've been doing. Well, Ken, you've been, folks, thanks for watching, by the way, but Ken, you've been doing some fishing here locally, offshore. I'm not an offshore person, so what kind of success have you had?
Well, you know, snapper, we got quite a bit of time this summer compared to, you know, the summers of the past, and
I think part of it was that storm, and we got some additional days because of the bad weather.
The federal regulations didn't give us a whole bunch more time, but in state waters, our state regulators did the fishermen well, in my opinion, by allowing 3-day weekends, and then over Labor Day weekend, and now we've extended because of a storm. And I was able to go several times during the course of the summer, and we're able to catch, you know, not huge, you know, monster snapper, but always managed to get a few nice ones to eat. And we had, I did go bass fishing a few times over the summer, and
you caught a couple of fine bass.
Yeah, those are pretty good bass. That was before the rule changed as far as the size limit goes. Now one of those would have to go back.
That'd be tough.
Yeah, it wasn't too easy, but.
Now these we're catching them on topwater baits, or
caught those on a rattling rogue.
Okay.
Swim
bait?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we had a good, you know, I didn't probably go as much as I'd like to, but I don't know if you ever get to go as much as you'd like to.
How deep a water do you fish, and are you finding a trigger fish an issue? That's one thing I hear from people that are.
Well, in state waters, mostly you're fishing, you know, 80 foot or less. If you get out around 100 or so, you're at the line or beyond it, depending. you know, if you don't really need to go that far, but
Right.
it's, you know, 70 to 80 probably is where I've been going. But I found the last 2 times I went, particularly if you don't have live bait, you're just using, you know, dead cigar minnows or squid or whatever you want to use, without having a lead on your
That's
line
that big.
that's 20 pounds to go
Right.
past them so
Yeah.
fast. They get your bait off the hook before you get to the
And
bottom.
the
and you're only
season's
talking,
closed on triggers right now, isn't it?
right, and most
Yeah.
of them are small fish anyway.
Yeah.
Because once you start fishing, they come up where you can see them in the water under the boat, and they're all smaller fish. You wouldn't keep them even if it was open, but they're so aggravating because by the time you get to the bottom, you don't get any bites because your bait's gone. Especially with dead bait. Live bait's a little different. They don't pick and get after as bad. But if you're stuck without live bait and use especially cigar minnows, if they've been frozen, they're soft and next, you know, like I say, you have to
Well, we
speed
got a
past
lot
them
of
or you're
cigar
not going to
minnows
get
right past our jetties out. I mean, you can catch live bait. I don't know
right
if you
around
do
the
that, if
buoys.
you use-
I do both, but you know, for $20 you can get a live well full, and it's a whole lot easier and faster to
I
go
don't
buy
blame-
them and leave. So, you know, that's just
No,
an
I
added
don't blame you.
expense.
I
but
don't blame you at all.
Triggerfish are aggravating. We got into a bunch of little amberjack one day. They got up around the back of the boat and we were jigging those, and they were all undersized fish, and it was closed too, but they're obviously fun to catch. They're not as bad on you as those real giant ones are, but they're fun to catch. And
You know, it's this very reason that people love to come to the Gulf Coast. They love to fish from here to, well, from Panacea to here to, you know, Apalachicola here to Destin to Pensacola. And it's just, you know, we do have, I know it sounds like a Chamber of Commerce spot,
paradise.
but it is. It's a
paradise.
great place if you like to fish. Got to watch the weather. You can't throw caution to the wind, and it is a lot of fun. I know your wife enjoys going.
yep, she went with me last
yeah.
time, and we got our 4 fish,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
turned around and came home. And you can talk a little bit about your inshore exploits.
I love to fish here locally. I get so seasick. I get invitations all the time to go offshore, but I get so seasick. I can't. It isn't worth it. You know, dying on a boat or feeling like you're going to die when you go off. You know, 10 or 12 miles or whatever. So
I've got a friend of mine that he'll be at the boat ramp and start looking at the water, and you don't clear the pass, and he's sick. So I don't have it happen to me. I don't know the feeling, but I've seen it, and it's awful, they say.
I went on a trip a few years ago to Duck Key, down in the Keys. We went out. We were in 250 feet of water. There were hundreds and hundreds of snapper and whatever else underneath the boat. You could see them on the bottom machine. Everybody's catching fish, and we're in 4 to 5 foot swells. And they hand me the rod, and at that point I was ready to die. I said, "Here, take the rod." And here I had driven, you know, 11 and a half, 12 hours to get down there, and anyway, so it's just not worth it.
So you're better off with your wade fishing for trout and redfish.
Oh man, I love it. I take my cast net, I catch live bait, and you know, catch these mud minnows and things. A lot of times I have people ask me, you know, how you learn this, but I learned from going with other people. Take a live bait bucket, I have it on my belt, and then I fish the smallest weight, weighted jig head I can get away with, probably 1/8 of an ounce is what I use. And then, you know, I've got spots that I go from, actually off Beach Drive downtown here, you can do the same thing. You don't have to go anywhere else, but you can go from here to Crooked Island to on down to St. Joe Bay to Panacea, on down that way, St. Teresa Beach, Carabel, on anywhere you've got grass and sand. These predator fish like speckled trout, flounder, and redfish, they love to hide in that. They'll hide right there at the edge of that sand. The flounder will lay in that sand a lot of times, and they ambush bait. So, and these fish are good to eat, nothing wrong. I always believe in taking fish home. You know, I do release fish, but I take fish home. I went just the other day and I caught a legal redfish. I guess it's my age, but I turned the fish loose. Had the most spots. I've never caught a red that had 9 or 10 spots, but I hear it all the time. People catch them, but this one I think.
Where's the picture?
Well, I'm by myself, and it's kind of hard to do a selfie with a camera out and water up to your waist.
If you took one, you would only see the fish anyway, because the way you are covered up in garb, you cannot be even identified when you go fishing.
No, people have no idea who I am.
He's covered head to toe with something.
I know it. Costa Del Mar owes me some money because I got their glasses, their whole garb on. So anyway, but I do enjoy it. It's a great thing about here. I've been to see Dr. Kovaleski enough times and had spots taken off. That's why I wear all that garb, was to prevent, prevent more surgery. So you got to do that here on the Gulf Coast.
And your feet are on terra firma, and you're not doing that.
No, I'm not doing that. The only thing I never been the other day is I had porpoises coming up behind me, blowing. And
that'll move you.
Yeah, that'll move you every time. Listen, we're going to take another break, and we'll be back in just a minute. Well, welcome back. Ken and I were just talking during the break about hunting seasons coming up, and one of the things that I brought in today was I love to dove hunt. We're in the first phase of dove season now, and one of the things years ago I saw, actually to tell you how long ago this was, in 1995 I got this magazine, and this magazine's called Delta Wildlife. And on the cover of the magazine, it's got a dove hunter. And I know this was a stage photo, but on the cover of the magazine is a guy standing with some decoys. And I got thinking about it. I said, I'd had this magazine for a while in a stack, and I said, that will work around here. And I knew they sold decoys, but I took paper and I actually traced out. I think I still have my original. These are the originals that I just sat down and drew out. I did not do this at work, by the way. I did this on my own time.
I can tell you've been retired.
Okay, anyway. But I went ahead and drew out some diagrams of what doves, what I thought they ought to look like, and then I cut them out. And I cut out on the softest wood I could find, and I painted these. And I use these when I'm dove hunting. And I have little small dowel rods. And I know this is probably showing I'm a little bit... what's the I'm trying to think of the word for it.
You're
but
doing
anyway,
fine.
Anyway, but as you said, I've got a lot of time on my hands. But I made these dove decoys, and I've got 4 different kinds, and I put these out in the dove field, and they're surprisingly effective. Doves, when they come in, I know I went with Travis Bassford last year and Nicole, and I put these out in a little peanut field where we were, and I'm telling you, it seemed like every dove that was coming in high.
What do you set them on?
Oh, well, this is just for demonstration purposes.
Where do you
put him on there?
You put him on the ground?
Yeah, no, I don't put him on the ground. I put him on a dowel rod, and I have about 16 to 18 out in front of me, and I have them scattered. So when the doves come in, they see them, and then they will bank. It's not illegal, by the way.
That's a production, though.
It is a production.
I used to just sit down under a tree and wait.
Hey, I'm removing all the chances that dove's going to go to him when I'm in a field. I'm going to do anything I can. It's like using live bait. Of course, these aren't live, but I mean, it's like using live bait for fishing.
Next thing you can do is make you a little motor and put here, and then he'll move.
No, I'm not doing that, but I appreciate that. But
Maybe you can get it patented.
Yeah, but these are very, very effective. No one has shot my decoys yet. I'm proud to say that.
I wonder you didn't step all over them.
But actually, they're very, very effective. And I've got one guy I went with one time. He told me that not to bring them back unless I brought enough for him to use, because doves are gregarious birds. When they come in the field, they want to see. They want to go to where their buddies are, and hey, you know what? Makes hunting
works, right?
it works, and it's legal, and anyway. Tim, Ken, as far as hunting season's coming up, deer season, in the few minutes that we remain, what do you think about in terms of deer season just around the corner? What are some of the things that you're doing right now to prepare for season coming up?
It is amazing the growth that occurs in the woods around your plots, around your stands, around your paths to go to your stands in just 6 to 8 months time.
Sure.
You end up clipping, mowing.
Right. Shooting lanes
trimmed, your feeder motors, charging your feeder batteries, batteries for your cameras,
Do you leave your tree stands out?
And tree stand safety, yes.
Use wooden stands or you use metal stands?
Metal ladders,
Good.
mostly. I got a couple ground blinds, but the straps that you strap them to the tree with,
Boy, yeah.
invariably, they just about need changing once a year. I mean,
Well, not only that, the tree grows,
tree grows,
straps deteriorate.
they'll fall down. Check the metal, the welds, you know, they'll start rusting around the welds. Your cloth, concealment cloth that goes
around your
around
blind.
the rail. I usually change it out. You can spend, you know, hours and days total in just getting prepared, as most of our viewers know.
And it's ideally better for your metal stands as well as your wooden stands not to leave them in the woods from year to year. Ideally, if you've got a place to store them because of rust and
Right.
all the things that can happen.
It's just more labor intensive to get them hauled out, and then you still got to store them. If you can't store them indoors, they're going to be out in the weather anyway.
Right.
At home, I just go over them, you know, and
Right.
make sure they're safe, and got a couple ground blinds now. I'm gravitating to stay down, you know, on the ground as much.
That's a function of age.
It is.
Ground blinds. The older you get, the lower that stand, their comfort level is.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. But there's a lot to getting prepared
is.
and try to meet the requirements of the feeding rule and get the corn and stuff out, you know, earlier.
your food plot should have been put in a couple of months ago, right?
October you can still do it,
Right.
depending on, a lot of people are doing it right now.
Right.
Just before you get it in, before the frost and all starts, you know.
Sure.
It's a lot to it.
Well, Kent, listen, those great tips. One thing you ought to do too is go and shoot your gun, whether it's center fire, muzzleloader, or whatever. Make sure that gun is sighted in, and because you owe it to the animal that you hunt. Listen, Winston will be back with us with you tomorrow, and we appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.